Okay, so what is the story of Aina? So basically, it started when I called an international aid organization. An international aid organization put out onto the radio that they needed help with the Ebola crisis. That was specifically what it was about. And we had just moved back to Washington, D.C. from Japan. I had quit my government contractor job from Japan, which was like basically organizing the whole community. And when we moved, so I quit that job when we moved. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. You know, I'm kind of ready to sort of re-enter the workforce after being a full-time mom and then being this government contractor in Japan. And so I heard this from the International Aid Organization. So I called them, and they basically told me that I wasn't good enough, and that anything that I wanted to give wasn't important. And so they said, I just want you to give us money. And we give money, a lot of money, to charitable organizations. And I wanted to give part of myself too, because I want to be a part of the worldwide community. And I think that relationships and connections between people actually help to create solutions for problems. And so I kept going back to this international aid organization, and they were like, no, nope, nope. And I was like, what is going on right now? Because I had worked in nonprofits before I had kids. I had worked actually at this place called the Volunteer Center. I was the director of operations there. You know, I was all about like connecting people and doing that kind of stuff. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I started digging into it. And there had been this huge shift that had happened in nonprofits and NGOs between that beginning time of when I'd been working in them and to that time, which was about like 8 years later, which was because NGOs were trying to raise money. They had gotten a lot of contractors in to say, like, and consultants to help them with raising their money. And what the consultants did, and this makes sense, what they did was they were like, just tell people to give money instead of like giving, you know, their pro bono services, or instead of doing any of that kind of stuff, tell them to give money, and then say to them that any kind of services that they could give are not as good as what you as an NGO could do with that money. And so it kind of like commoditized our service and our individual service that we give to like our hearts, basically. And I understand why that was created, and it's created this space of people feeling like they don't really actually have anything important to give, because that's what they keep hearing from NGOs. And I was like, no, we can't do this. We can't do this anymore. And so that was what the birthplace of Aina was. And that has still, it's always been its driving mission of this place of how do we empower people to go out and do the things that they're being called to do? How do we create those pathways? And how do we support them as they're doing it so that they're not doing it on their own?